Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the second hour. And we're really excited to have Jon Raidel here from Viz. As you know, we use Vectar on the extra hour. Bill had just talked about the fact that we do extra hours on Monday nights, and we were using Vectar for that, and it's working out really well for us. But there has been a lot of updates, and it felt like there was enough updates that we really needed to get Jon back on to discuss the updates, not only to any things related to the cloud, but also to TriCasters and some of the other Viz offerings. Jon, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Alex. Thanks so much. I'm really excited to be here.
So tell us what's new. What are the new? Well, let's start off with the TriCasters.
Sure.
There's been quite a few updates there. So it seems like you went both high end and more affordable all at the same time.
Yeah. So the product team, product management, and R&D have been extremely busy in the last year.
Yeah.
Meeting the demands of the market, answering questions, and wanting to find solutions. So at IBC, we formally announced the TriCaster Vizion series, which is our new high-end system, and on the lower end, the TriCaster Mini S.
Well, and so tell us about the high end. What was added to what to the normal TriCaster?
Yeah, so TriCaster Vizion is the first TriCaster that will be on a brand new hardware platform, where we've gone completely over the shelf with an HP Z4 G5 tower, or one rack unit server, and we've moved from the traditional built in San Antonio SDI card, and we've moved to Matrox. So these two things combined are a massive shift for our R&D department, building the TriCaster family products.
And what have there been any feature changes as a result of that upgrade?
Yeah, so I can run through. I have one picture that I can share. I didn't want to bring slides, but I do have one.
We're always warn everyone, like, we're not really a slide community.
Yeah, but I think this one's.
I think slides are good. This will be good.
This one piece. So I have no idea. Yep, people showing it. Okay, so on TriCaster Vizion, as I said, we have two new hardware configurations. You can get the HP Z4, and that comes in a tower form or a one rack unit form. That, upon ordering through Vizrt, and this goes from anyone directly, key accounts, or through the traditional channel through the resellers, you can then configure that machine when you purchase it. So it gets configured as a couple different modes. You can have it fully IP, NDI and SRT only, or you can configure the tower to have one or two Matrox cards. The one RU server only has one slot to fit a single Matrox card. But what's really exciting about this Matrox card, it's 8 input output bidirectional. So you can, as an example, in the tower, you could set those two SDI cards to 16 SDI inputs, 0 output via SDI, but then use NDI as your outputs. You lose no resources, no configuration in that sense.
Right.
But it's really nice and a huge change that the customers can now order a software or a hardware configuration instead of in the past it was all the one single box. There was no configuration in that sense.
Right.
And then both the Vizion come with a model to do perpetual or subscription.
And with this, you have the 16 up to 16 inputs or input outputs, right? So you can go back and forth on those. And what is the limitation on how many channels can you manage with NDI?
So what we've done with Vizion is our goal, our mindset is to bring this up to resources that and features of our premium software in cloud with Vector. So TC Vizion will run the same resource count, so it can do up to 44 inputs, 28 outputs, 9 mix effects, the 4 keyers per mix effect. Everything that Vector does, Vizion will do as well on its software side, except for Vizion is on-prem and has the added ability of the onboard SDI in and out.
Right.
The goal here is to make that seamless across the entire family, and it becomes just, I'm running TriCaster software. What is my resource limitations or resource counts? We want the users to be able to build or to grow through the product line, but also them to feel that it's similar if they go down through the product line. And then another part which will as our reach goal, our bigger piece of the Vizion product, with moving to the subscription model, we want to also allow for that license to float. So a huge benefit for the users would be, I'm on a subscription model, I'm using my TriCaster Vizion on-prem, whether that, maybe that's in my truck or trailer or whatever it is, on the weekend, but during the week, I can use that same exact license to run Vector in the cloud in my office, right? And that's where we want to move in that sense across that.
And I know that NDI has started to support HDR, as you know that HDR is important to us.
Yep.
Where is that on the roadmap for the TriCasters?
Yep. So as part of Vizion and Vector simultaneously, a huge thing over the past year has been done on the back end. Our R&D team has rewrote the back end render pipeline. We now can do 16-bit video across. And because of that, we are going to be able to support 10-bit workflows, including HDR in both HLG and PQ formats.
That's great. And when you say that I think that for folks listening, when we say HLG and PQ, that's applying the curve without the metadata, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's great. And that is a practical way to manage that. Like it is being able to support those two curves is, in my opinion, for live a lot more important than managing the metadata, which has become almost impossible. Like when we do it even
Absolutely.
in hardware, we can't process that. So now that's the high end, and then you went also to a more affordable solution as well.
Right. And what we did on the lower end, I'm going to not show this slide anymore because we don't really need it. So then what we also did was announced TriCaster Mini S. And TriCaster Mini S will be the first TriCaster branded product that is meant for software only. It's a subscription model that runs $1,400 for the year.
So this is bring your own computer?
Correct. Yeah. So what we'll do in that sense, R&D will publish and certify a handful of over-the-shelf hardware systems. So the 3 to begin with are a Lenovo P3 Ultra. We'll publish that manufacturing number, and you could purchase that one, and we'll stand behind our software running on that machine. 2 others that they're working on finishing up is HP Z2 Mini and a Dell Alienware R16. If my head, if it's like a Dell 17, no one kill me for that. But right. We'll have essentially 3 models over the shelf that we will stand behind, certify. You'll get full support on. We'll also publish minimum specs, which I don't know are public, but I can tell you it's going to be, a Windows 11 Intel processor with, NVIDIA card as a requirement, with, a minimum RAM spec. Those specs you'll get limited support on, but we will at least publish the minimum for performance.
Is there any version of this that gets to like I can add more video cards and get more I/O or more whatever? Is it is that if people decided they wanted to build a crazy rig, would they be able to take advantage of it?
So Mini S will reflect the TriCaster Mini sort of like family. And what I mean by that is the resource count inside of that particular area. So it'll be 8 inputs. It'll be 4 MEs, two keyers, 2 outputs, or maybe it's 2 individual 4K outputs. Whatever that kind of like inside the product family that's minimum tier. That Mini S software will stay inside of that kind of spec of resources.
Right. That makes
now
sense.
we can add. Now we will be able to add features as always, but we'll always keep the Mini family sort of in that same space because we want you to grow in the other ways with the products, the product family moving forward.
Right. And as I said at the top of the hour, a lot of, we're using Vector successfully on our Monday nights. And that is now available in the marketplace. Is that right?
Yep. And the third bigger announcement for sure was Vector is now available in AWS Marketplace. That's public. I supplied a link if there's graphic whatnot to throw there across the screen. That's downloadable now, and what's fantastic about this is talking to so many different, people, whether it's a broadcaster whether it's AWS themselves, or a customer directly, or a guy doing productions himself. Now the Vector software is available for you to try, and you can use your AWS account. We supply you with the AMI, the specs, and a deployment guide. And that software is watermarked and essentially free. So
and is it the same watermark that we've seen before? Is it the same kind of at the bottom there that pops up?
Yeah, so it's a Vizrt logo on the bottom. Yeah. I will say that I don't think it was done on purpose, but because we rewritten some things, I have seen that the Vizrt logo is a little bit more orange and a little bigger. But yes, it's watermarked. And for the users that want to try Vector and just train on it, learn about it, and have it be an entry point in now it's this is more accessible to try before I have to commit to a purchase. I think this is an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, and one of the things that for folks to know about what we're doing is that we are encouraging people who want to build their own instance of Vector to be able to jump onto the Monday night show. There's a little bit of work to do on our end. I mean, for you to you can't have everybody doing it, but if you are interested, reach out to Taylor Sunderhouse or myself. And we can get you kind of into the mix, but we're having more than one person cut the show. So there's different versions of it because it's all in the cloud, and you're just simply pulling from the Zoom Room reflector. You're not putting more pressure on us, So if you build your own account and you put on this demo of Vector, you can actually jump in and cut our show. The best way to learn how to cut a show is to cut a show, and see what the requirements are and figure out what those things are. And we plan to do a lot more in this area. So we highly recommend people banging against, figure out what those sharp edges are, get this thing installed and play with cutting the show that we have. But we're hoping to do some things with concerts, with other kinds of events, same kind of thing, where it all becomes like we just supply it all. And it's a really interesting that we can kind of push it up into the cloud and let everyone kind of cut as they want to train. In fact, we're going to also be moving towards having an actual director show calling a show, so you can listen to the comms and listen to the person calling the show. You all have the same feeds, and see, how well you do. So again, one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this up and talk about it again is that we're really excited about what we're doing with Vector, and I think that there's a possibility of us training a lot of people to cut with it and to build with it. So what I'd recommend is people go up to the AWS Marketplace and download the demo and figure out what it takes and ask questions inside of our discussion boards as well as on the show, and we'll hopefully bring more people up to speed.
Yeah, I think you hit it dead on, Alex. I will say that we've listened to so many people as well, and how important it is to document, knowledge share, these things. I think training, the way that you guys are going about it is, a fantastic idea. People should take advantage of that. I will say that don't do too many subscribers. You will find some things. There is a limit to single TCP with your NDI sources, but you guys will find that limit, and I could help you guys anyways. It's been great to work with you.
The funny thing is that I don't think that it is, because what we're adding to what you're doing is a Zoom room. You need to, each person's adding a Zoom room. So, I mean, there is a limit, but we're pulling it from the actual Zoom reflector back into everybody's their own AWS instances, right? So it's not all NDI from our Zoom room. It's everybody has their own Zoom room.
Oh, okay.
There.
That's even better, yeah, because ultimately the NDI sender has a limitation in
absolutely.
In single TCP compared to
so we're not pulling from our Zoom room. Each person would build their own vector instance, but then also add the Zoom room to they'd have to do that on their end as well. But that means that we are putting a lot of pressure on the Zoom reflector.
Right, but I think this is the great thing about doing these things. It's allowing us to discover, explore this, and use the knowledge sharing, right? So, like, I can say without a doubt, I am going on almost 3 years at Vizrt. January will be 3 years, which is crazy. But even in that time, the amount of things that we've changed with documentation and outreach and education is just such a huge thing. So, like, as an example, a freelance operator who wants to go and try Vector and learn about TriCaster because they've only used, switcher X, Y, and Z. Now it's available in AWS. The freelancers as well have, we've opened up Viz University. There's a freelancer portal. These videos, tutorials are available for a freelancer now for free. They used to be only for Vizrt customers. So we're trying to help with that type of training, and even across the company with other products, not just Vector or not just TriCaster, I should say. We're doing hands-on, in-person, what we call master classes. Mm-hmm. So we know that education and training is so important, and we're really trying to invest in those things to give to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else that's new?
I think those are like the gigantic. Those are the gigantic announcements, and I have a Vector running, and I could show you them firsthand.
Yeah,
and then we can take the conversation.
We got one question, or got a couple questions. Let's go jump to those questions, and then we'll do the demo. So let's go to the first question.
This one's from David Brady in New York City, New York. For a company who just purchased and deployed the previous gen TriCaster, what is the upgrade choice? Buy once, cry once.
Depending on how just purchased that timeline is, reach out back to the reseller, what I assume, and talk with them. We definitely understand customers who maybe have just purchased a TriCaster 2 Elite, and now this TriCaster Vizion, as an example, solves for some other problems or solution, or creates the solution for some other things that they weren't working with.
Yep. Next question.
This one's for me. If I wanted to learn Vizrt and cut the Monday show, what am I looking at for cost to run it in the cloud per hour?
So from a Vector standpoint, I don't know that we talk about this enough. I talk about it with customers, but publicly, I think we should talk more. TriCaster Vectar in AWS runs on, yes, a GPU instance. We have GPU acceleration, and that comes with a cost compared to just CPU intensive machines. But the size of the instance that we run on is a G4 4XL. And when it comes down to it, that instance will run you about $2 an hour after Windows and the GPU instance and the elastic IPs and things like that. And I like to talk to this as like that number of the AWS cost matters. We get a lot of performance out of our instance where we don't need multiple GPUs, we don't need a ton of CPU, and that's because of our R&D team. They're experienced with running software. They're experienced using the NVIDIA platform and have for the longest time. And we are showing off our performance and our efficiencies in that space.
Yeah, do you want to add anything to that, Alex?
Yeah, and I'm just curious, is there documentation for a complete newbie who's never run stuff in the cloud like this? Like here's a guideline, like if you need to do this many sources, then you should probably spec out this type of machine. If you're going to do this, then you should get this, like that type of documentation.
Really, so we do have a AWS, so we have a TriCaster Vectar AWS deployment guide. And that is a part of the process of when you download that AMI from the marketplace store. The specs, in the sense of what you're asking, I stand behind that. You can do 44 NDI inputs with all of the outputs on a G4 4XL. The nuance, there's no scaling as far as the system goes as you add those inputs, unless you're starting to mix inputs with something that's CPU intensive like SRT. So we have SRT, the switcher's SRT capable of input, but it is absolutely more intensive on CPU, which in that sense, you can add more cores to it and go to a G4 or G5 8XL. And then just in generally speaking on the AWS side, with the announcements of the G6 series, our team is working on doing our benchmark testing on, making Vector deployable on that family, G4 family as well, or G family as well.
Let's go ahead and jump into the demo.
Yeah, sure. Let me get this screen share going. All right, you guys got me?
We see you.
Sweet. So first off the bat, really cool for longtime TriCaster users. We've changed the splash page. So now it's no longer going back and forth between two different menus. This is the main menu as you launch the application. You'll be able to bring in your custom or save custom presets for your sessions, supporting various formats. And then here you could see the new addition to the color spaces. You can mix and match. So we'll support the Rec 709. We'll support 10-bit SDR with BT 2020, and then we'll support the 10-bit space for HDR with HLG and PQ. These things will be available immediately in Vector's release, and in Vizion, in TriCaster Vizion on-prem, they will be very, very shortly released. They're finishing off the SDI piece of this. One thing just to put into perspective, people have to realize like the work that's been done by the R&D team, and we have a fantastic R&D team. But the longest time they were building their own SDI card, and NDI was natively 8-bit. So this change to what you have to do is go through a 16-bit pipeline first, change that into a 10-bit pipeline, and now rewrite flows for using like the Matrox card. That's a huge change for the R&D team, and I can't say enough amazing things about them.
But it wasn't just they just didn't flip a bit and just
unfortunately, it's not just 2 bits. Yeah, it's not just 2 bits like we like to joke around.
Right.
The guys are amazing though, and it needs to be talked about, because if I was on the customer side, I don't get to see the behind the scenes. But because I'm working with these guys, it's fantastic. It's unbelievable.
Well, we often say when I worked at ILM, anytime someone said, "Oh, that's going to be hard," someone would almost always quickly respond, "Well, if it was easy, everyone would do it." And one of the things you notice is how few software tools are in. As someone who works in 10-bit, I work in 10-bit. Most of my work's in 10-bit. Is that it's pretty rare to have the software managing color in 10-bit. Let's go ahead and jump. One question I had for you related to this is, in the what is that when you're doing configuration? How do you configure we stream to YouTube, but we're looking for specific color space configurations in the encode. Is that something that is easy to get to there?
Yeah, I'll show you into the session what we have. Okay, so I'm gonna do just because of some of the footage that I have, I'm gonna open up an existing file. I have a HDR-PQ 50-piece session, and then I'll start it up. So this will be across the board. I have a handful. I have a couple. I'm going to hit the highlights on the features that are really cool, and a big change. And I hope that some of them for the longer time TriCaster users, there's tears of joy. All right, so again, we're going to keep the session, the look of the switcher very consistent. We don't want to change much. We want it to become familiar. One of the really nice features that we're adding, unfortunately because of DCV, this little tab here is over top of it, but there is a button now called Setup. And Setup gets us into a menu that you can reach different settings much quickly. So the first update is a input source routing table. For the longest time, you would have to go into each individual input's configuration, select the source that you wanted to see, connect to it, do your renaming, et cetera, and to just look at that. You also still have a quick switch to that, but this menu is all kinds of cumbersome in the sense of I just want to map my switcher. So we've done this so you can just hit a drop down, run into your NDI network, select your source, connect to it, and do very simple renaming of sources if you want. And as you can see the whole list, you'll be able to go through all your inputs. This is a massive just quality of life. I can't believe we could finally do this instead of the way that we had been doing. Another feature that we've added is being able to take a keyer with a DVE and copy it. So I would have a keyer here with a bug. Inside of the DVE, I have these parameters, and everyone would have to screenshot it with your phone and type it in to type it into the next DVE or the keyer layer. So now we've just added a simple copy, and then you can come to another keyer and paste it, and that's immediately available in the switcher in all layers. Thing to remember that's really nice about the switcher is every layer of video inside is 100% a 3D resizer. I have a 3D DVE on every single layer of video. And then moving through. So this one I'm going to have to try and walk you through this step by step. So the last major feature that we added is inside of our output tabs. So this menu is being called output assignments. So now you have the ability on a mix out to select whichever source you want. And if you choose a bus like the program bus or any of the MEs, you're now going to be given control of these 4 checkboxes. And in this situation, this is now going to be able to remove those keyers from output in that specific mix. So this is now able to do what would be called ME mode and on other switchers, and being able to do different clean feeds. So as an example, I can use my program.
So you could have clean feeds at different because a lot of times we're stuck with like you have a clean feed or a program feed overall, right, but you don't have ones for individual MEs.
Right. So we can always have done an ME output as program and then a distinct ME clean output, meaning just no keyers.
Right.
This becomes specialized. You're still using one of your
you can turn
mixes.
off certain keyers. So you can build a hybrid of clean keys. So you're saying, well,
exactly.
I don't want, and the reason that this would, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the way this would be used is that I want to output one without the bug. Like, so the bug's
exactly.
in the program, but I don't want the bug, or I don't want, some other, the ticker, the ticker is going to, so those would be really typical ones, but I still want the lower thirds in there, like that kind of thing. I don't want to have to deliver those. And so that's a really interesting, very
so unique. So this is really cool because I'm going to just turn these on, and this is my, program output. I'm going to have a ticker coming in through FlowX. I have a lower third coming in on keyer 3, and then I have a bug up top on keyer 2. So I want my program dirty to be all of these, of course.
Right.
But then I want just the score clock on mix 2, and then inside of my output 3, I just want the lower third. If I do wipes, I'll disable those as well. And now we'll show here that I have everything. I have mix 2 is set with only keyer, and then this is mix 3 is only key 3. And it won't matter what I do as far as cutting and mixing.
Right.
That still follows, and it actually doesn't matter how many layers of the keyers overlap with each other.
Right.
Because you can, one of the really cool things in this one would be, hey, I have 3 languages. They're all going to come on a font that looks identical. They're going to actually overlap with each other, but each font layer is a different language.
So you're turning on and off different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now my technical director is going to do the same exact job, but he's going to efficiently create those 3 different feeds.
Right. That makes sense.
Yep. So this is a really a big feature, a lot of power in this to help solve for multiple productions with languages and regionalized graphics and clean feeds and world feeds and all those kind of different production use cases and demands.
Got a couple more questions rolling in. Let's go ahead and jump to
it.
Next question is from Peter Moore in Auckland, New Zealand. Given all the switching stuff, cutting between shows, ads, etc., was literally physical buttons and switching off physical feeds, etc., and switching to a physical video source, have you learned from the old tech to put into the software?
I think that's, it's how do you interface with all of those things. It was hardware, now it's not. I mean, I think that what's really interesting about a lot of the software switching that's, that we're doing, you can, for instance, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but if you wanted to have a hardware interface, you can just take the TriCaster interface and tie it IP-wise into your AWS, into Vector, right? I mean, so if someone wants a physical interface, they could have it.
Yeah, so the physical interface meaning the control surface itself?
Yeah, control surface.
Yeah, so like to my right, I have a control surface. I actually don't have it connected right now, but I will. Yeah, so we make control panels, and if those technical directors, producers want that tactile feel, we absolutely have a control surface, for those things. And, we really pride ourselves on the latency of the product between the operator and what they're viewing. So you can absolutely have a control surface. The software itself also can do a touch panel, and then the software also can interface with Stream Deck or other devices as well.
And everything in correct me if I'm wrong, but everything in Vector is addressable. So you can make calls to do almost anything you'd want to do. So you could build your own interface, your own web interface, web GUI, whatever, that's sending those commands to it. So it's not even just that it's physical or Stream Deck. It could be pretty much anything.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. With all the different applications now, there's so much translation happening that you can do almost anything.
Yeah. Next question.
This one's for me. Can you give an overview of some AWS basics like terminology for those that haven't used it? What is a G4 instance and what does it give you?
Yeah, so on its base, G4 family of products are a instance server that's running using a GPU. And in this situation, it would be a NVIDIA Tesla T4. We take advantage of that Tesla T4 and run the software using Windows configuration with that server. And then it will scale inside of that family from, say, a G4 XL, which is the amount of cores. It has nothing to do with the GPU. The G4 family always uses the Tesla T4. But then it'll scale up to 4XL and 8XL, which will give you more CPU cores. And then as you jump into the G4 12XL, that actually has 4 Tesla T4s with it. So if you have the demands of multiple GPUs and you have the application that needs multiple GPUs, then you would jump into that size. And then these things go all the way up to bare metal, where you're something at 120 CPUs and 4 GPUs. Depending on what your product is, you're gonna size it based on those specs.
And we've definitely, I think that when we started using Vector, we were at smaller instances and just kept adding them until we got the performance that we need, for what we were doing. Next question.
This one's from Guy Cochran in Seattle. For sports, how would you recommend getting camera feeds to the cloud in sync?
Go ahead, John.
Yep. So we've done this multiple times for a lot of projects, and a lot of these now are public, so we could talk about them as well. There's multiple ways. It all depends on your infrastructure on the ground, but we've done events where we're using LiveView, and those are timed on the ground and sent up into a decode on the LiveView side and supplied with NDI sources. We've done SRT delivery, and those in best practice are sent to a centralized decode where they're transcoded to NDI. So then for sports, as an example, camera 1 can go to a production switcher, but also multiple replay machines. So we would stand behind that transcode, and where those get transcoded, they're going to be retimed as well. NDI has its own stamps, timestamps, so they'll stay in sync as well across once they're created. You could also use NDI bridge. That's gonna vary on your hardware encoder, what power you have and how many sources. If you want them, to be NDI HX signals that would be compressed like an MPEG-4 or an HEVC. But then also on the high end, we've done full JPEG XS with Appear encoders to cloud as well. And then again, those would get transcoded, and within the control room configuration, we use NDI to move that video around because the decode on the JPEG XS side is so great, and you just don't have the resources to do multiple decodes for individualized JPEG XS streams. One thing that I go by when we have these conversations at an architectural level is having people understand that SRT and JPEG XS as codecs are wonderful. These are content and distribution codecs. They travel over public internet or mobile networks, but they're for contribution. They're not production codecs. And then on the reverse side of that, NDI is built as a production codec. It can then share its stream with its sender to multiple endpoints. Whereas the flip side, I would say, is NDI is not a contribution codec. And like I said before, SRT and JPEG XS are not a production codec, and that comes down to the principal idea of where do these streams need to go, how are you using them,
Right.
And how do you time all of these things up to get the lowest latency possible.
Next question.
Robert Green in Los Angeles asks, what other AWS computers are recommended? One to run Zoom, another to route sources?
Go ahead, John.
Just depends on your architecture. So yeah, you would have a Zoom machine running the Zoom Rooms software. The great thing about the infrastructure is you really don't need a router. You can use a router. You could use NDI to route your sources around, and then NDI tools themselves has a little router as well that you can use. But you don't necessarily need to run that on a separate instance. And then from there, you scale out based on what other things do you need. Do you need replay? Do you need graphics? Are your graphics running on a machine that has to run in AWS because it's like a Trio engine, or your graphics like an HTML base, like a Flowix, like a Singular, like a tagboard or whatnot, that it's all HTML native. So you're just building out your infrastructure from there.
Next question.
Peter Moore in Auckland, New Zealand is asking, trying to get my brain around this. So this is a software-based product that accepts multiple video inputs over NDI, UDP or TCP, and maybe physical cameras. And then you, as the curator, sends the output to the TD for consumption?
No, I think it does all those things, but I think that the issue is that you're not sending to the TD for consumption. It is the TD. You are the TD. This is switching software. So it's a software switching that you can send a lot of different. You can get things to it in a lot of different ways, but it's not. But once it's there, it's just treated like another video input. Next question.
Robert Green in Los Angeles asks, can you create an audio aux mix for a clean feed with all talent mics separated?
Yep. So the TriCaster software does have a built-in audio mixer. We have a master plus 3 auxes that we expose 8-channel routing. So you can separate mics, create IFBs. For larger productions, we tend to put the audio mixing into capable hands with a vendor that uses or that has an audio mixing tool, SSL, Waves, these companies that do audio for their job. And they have llamas would be another one that I know of off the top of my head that have appeared in productions. But those companies then will bring in and subscribe to the same NDI sources with the embedded audio, create mixes, create those mix minuses and alternate feeds as well.
And one of the things I have to say, one of the things that delayed our use of Vector was that I was trying to figure out how I was going to do the software, what software we're going to use to do audio mixing. And then when we opened, we were like, well, we'll just open up Vector and see how far we can go. And we're just running the show. I mean, for a basic show, the mixer works perfectly, so we found that we didn't need to make it nearly as complicated as we were making it. Next question.
Peter Belbin in Houston, Texas. Transitions. How can I make a dip to black instead of white transition?
I don't know what that dip to black is. Usually just a button. I mean, it's
so dip to black is a source on the switcher. You should be able to multi-delegate keyers if you want them to dissolve off when you're going to a source. So you'd be able to dip to black and then come back up to a source. There shouldn't be anything special there. The great thing about TriCaster is, even though, yes, it's a software switcher, but we have a mix effects architecture, so it should be familiar to those that run a linear, legacy switcher.
John, thank you so much for your time. It's great.
Yeah, of course. I actually, I don't know what time. I do have one other thing to show you, Alex, because of the HDR piece. I didn't get to it with the demo, but just real quick.
Yeah.
I wanted to show this from an HDR perspective when we're doing LUTs. So now you can go into all your inputs. You can come into image, and you'll have color profile. And at that point, you can come in and select that LUT. You'll see this in the GUI directly.
And I want to go back to that for a second. So not only can you apply a LUT, but you have some coloring options as well, right? I mean, you've got a proc amp in for every input. Is that correct?
Correct.
So
these ones, the reality is when you're doing an HDR production, you probably want, a camera shader and the CCU, and you want them to do that level. But we have in our solution, we have those features as well. What's really, really nice about our HDR implementation, we worked with some broadcasters on how to do this right. But something that the R&D team did that they wanted to, we told them that it wasn't needed. It wasn't a requirement, if you will, MVP. But the interface, while yes, through this show, we're doing monitors and it's not HDR necessarily from a picture piece, but in our software running on a screen with the graphics cards that can do HDR, the actual interface is HDR. So all the pips that you see inside of the multi-viewers of the product will also be in HDR color. So as an example, in my setup, I have an HPZ4. I'm running NDI bridge on my RTX card, and I'm pulling down an HDR version of the switcher, and it's going into a specific HDR computer monitor in this sense, because I don't have the money to get some nice HDR glass. If anyone knows anybody and wants to send me one, I'm happy to have that and talk about it. But for my purposes, the seeing bridge and bringing it down into studio monitor via HDR is good enough for me, right, for my office setting. But it's been a lot of work over the last year. But adding the HDR support for this has been quite a jump in work. Sorry, I'm going to lose my screen share because I see a little bit of GPU time. I'm running all of this off of a laptop, so
Right. No, absolutely.
I apologize. Once I'm done with the screen share, everything has calms down on the computer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, again, one of the things that had us start to go towards Vector was knowing that HDR was in the pipeline. And so we're, as we start to move, we've already noticed, we're looking at our whole pipeline because that was the other question I had for you. When we encode, is there a place to change the color space and not color space, but color resolution? So to 420 as opposed to 422. Do you know if there's a place inside of the encodes when we're streaming from Vector to do that?
So, that's right. So right now our implementation in the software, in our encoder, you'll find under SRT encodes, we'll be able to apply LUTs.
And not LUTs, but just defining the color, 422 versus 420.
Yeah, I don't think we have exposed that. If in the different encoder profiles, that is something that we have a handle on, we can then expose it inside of the switchers encoder.
Right, because one thing we were talking about earlier in the show, we have discovered that 422 at 4K into YouTube does not work. So we were like, so we figured out how to do it on our hardware side of how to solve that problem. But we're so the test, but it looks amazing when the frames that you get out work great.
I think that's going to be a big part and a really exciting piece is as the NDI6 adoption happens with the vendor tools. More and more HDR workflows by vendors using the advanced SDK are going to come to fruition. And then, things like, exactly what you're saying, like, hey, do we have those handles of a 420 compared to a 422? It's something that, quite honestly, never had come up in conversation for me. But now knowing it's a thing, that's the great piece of our R&D team because we can talk with them about our encoder settings and what can we expose where.
Right. Absolutely.
That's the beauty of software. We can make that change. We could do that work, and it takes. We could push it out instead of being restricted by a hardware limitation or something that we released that just can't simply do it. Right. So absolutely, it's a great piece.
It's great, Jon. Thanks again. So good to have you here.
And, I'm really happy.
Go ahead.
Yeah, really happy to hear you guys doing everything with the product and even just the show moving to a cloud workflow is really exciting. We've seen a lot of growth, and sometimes these adoption cycles are in waves or longer. But seeing people use our products and seeing the adoption move in the way it's going is really, really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know when you have more things to show. We'd love to have you back on.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much. And thanks to everyone who asked questions both in the first hour and second hour. We can't do this without you. We also can't do it without the panelists. Thank you so much for answering those questions in the first hour and being part of the conversation in the second hour. And thanks to the incredible development teams that make this possible every single day, 7 days a week. We have multiple pipelines and multiple ways of getting this done. And we have a variety of different teams, not only managing the tech, but cutting the shows and managing who's going to be on and managing. There's lots of bits and pieces that have to be processed to make this all work. And we really appreciate everybody's contribution. Today, if we had walked around and done this in person, walking there, the Tlaloc Traversal, we would have traveled 52,000 miles. That is 84,000 kilometers, and that is 413 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours.
Great to see you again. Thanks, Jon.
Yeah, absolutely, guys.
Yeah, it really opened a bunch of doors when we started doing the 4K on Monday nights. We were like, this looks so good. Like this looks so much better than the 1080p version, even though we're doing 1080p sources. But it also is how YouTube's handling the compression, and so it looks different. It looks a lot different. So it's fascinating. So anyway,
yeah. I'm really excited about where this is going for us, the product, and we're making huge steps forward.
That's great.
we got an amazing team, guys. It's unbelievable.
Very cool. All right. Thanks, John. See you later.
Thanks. Bye.